Everybody, it's Doom here from Dungeons and Doom Biscuit, and this is the second part of the pile of bodies that the evil doctors, Dr. Ludwig and Dr. Linda Lorbus, are using to create their abominations. And you could have multiple piles of bodies for a group like them. They'd probably be, killing enough townsfolk here and there to populate several such piles. So I'm just getting some deep brown from the water tree, or from the Dollar Tree, and I'm getting in here and trying to create my painted desert look along the base, and the best I can. It's okay if you get it on stuff, because we're going to come around and paint everything else again. But you want to go kind of watered and thin to make sure you get it in your dirt. So it's coated nicely. Now, I had to think about how I wanted to do this, and I was kind of like watching Joe Rogan, listening to Joe Rogan and looking at this and thinking to myself, how do you want to handle this? And I think the best thing to do is to have these be pretty fresh bodies, because to come and try to make these be like bodies that have been decaying a lot, chances are they've already been made into an experiment, is my thought, that they wouldn't actually have had time to start decaying much. Okay. So I think we got pretty much everything we're going to get. So let's get another lighter color. I'm going to use khaki. Oh, that's way too much. Wasteful, wasteful. Let me get some of that khaki. I'm going to make a mid-color. I'm going to come in and drag that around in some spots. Get my painted desert look going a little bit. Then I'm going to clean out my brush. I'll leave the water in it. I'll get some more of that khaki. And then we'll just kind of dab that around too. Okay. Let's dry this off. It doesn't have to be perfect. So next thing I'm going to do is the cart. I'm going to do the cart in a dark brown for now. So I'm going to grab a giant jug of burnt umber, and I'm going to get a kind of smallish brush to do this, because I don't want to make an enormous mess that I can't fix later. So I'm going to just do my cart real roughly, real jagged, real pitifully in this dark brown. And if I catch any other paint that's wet as I'm going, I'm just going to mix it in and make it part of the color scheme, and I'm not going to think about it too much. La 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 la. Painting time. Seems to get a little dull. So let me think. Let me make up a story about Ludwig and Linda. So, Dr. Ludwig Lorbus was an Austrian immigrant who came here. He was a surgeon in Europe who got into trouble for some experiments he had been doing. And he fled to the United States and quickly was a success on the East Coast. But rumors traveled from overseas about his unethical behaviors and the local medical community in New York started keeping an eye on him and realized, yes, he is doing this stuff. And they went to shut him down, and they were attacked by a horrible canine creation. He fled west. They didn't know that. They just knew he was gone, and they were glad for it. As he was fleeing west, he met a young woman who was training to be a barber. And if you know anything about the Old West, a barber was kind of like the doctor, the dentist, the barber. They were kind of like everything. So he met this woman and fell madly in love with her, and they fled together. She went with him, and they tried to make their escape into the West. Everything is going well, and they're making their journey, and she became with child. He deemed her medical knowledge to be good enough that he proclaimed her as a doctor. And she started going by the title doctor as well, even though she was actually not a trained doctor or surgeon. She was just a barber. The two of them, while she was pregnant, were having a lot of trouble on the run with a pregnant wife and him trying to stop and think they were safe all the time and continue his research. It just became problematic. And eventually, they at one point had started to flee south, and they made their way all the way down to Louisiana. And in Louisiana, they met a vampire. Now, they don't know how this vampire knew they were evil, but the vampire knew they were evil, and they didn't realize what a vampire was even real at that point, right? Who'd have thought vampires were real? No one. So they meet this vampire, and they kind of don't believe it, and then the vampire exposes the fact that vampires are real and everything, and it's believable, and they have no choice but to believe it, and so it changes everything that he knows about science, and everything that she knows and believes about science kind of changes overnight, just like that, because of this vampire. Well, they try to capture the vampire so they can take its blood and do experiments with it. And the vampire kind of lets them, and then tells them if they are willing to work for the vampires, that they will be given technologies and secrets that no one knows about, and they will be the only ones with access to it. They, of course, agree, and they're given some vampire blood and some blood from revenants and zombies and other stuff, and eventually they're given some blood from a creature, a lycanthrope they encounter. And then a mythical beast, a bison that can swim in the ground, is captured. And it's got some kind of new essence in it, some kind of new undetectable magic in it. And they mix all this stuff together, and they create something they call Element X. And the phenomenal aspect of Element X is that with this Element X, they can create things. They can mutate things that are alive. If you take something that's dead and use Element X and sew it to something that's dead, the thing that's alive can temporarily survive. And their experiments start getting pretty dangerous, pretty dark, and pretty horrible. All this time, while that's happening, she's becoming more and more and more pregnant. And she also becomes more and more in love with Ludwig, and he more and more in love with her. And tragedy falls while hiding in Texarkana to give birth to their child. They kind of stopped contacting the dark forces that they've been working with. And when they stop contacting the dark forces and checking in, the dark forces show up in Texarkana and just start setting up shop, buying businesses and stuff. And so the Ludwigs are scared, or the Lorbuses are scared. They have all this technology they don't want to lose, and they're terrified. They don't know how to handle this. This is called Sand Golem. I'm just going to use this to change the color of some clothes real quick in some spots for the people that still have clothing on their body parts. A lot of these people seem to be wearing boots. So the forces of evil say, okay, you know, we gave you all this material to work with, and you know, and we're glad you're doing evil with it, but you know, hey, you work for us. And the Lorbus says, you know, get a little snooty. And the vampire comes back, and while she's giving birth. And that is it. The vampire waits till the baby comes out and kills the baby. He goes into a rage, and the vampire grabs Linda, Dr. Linda Lorbus, who, by the way, is not really a doctor, and threatens to kill her. He says, I will take your baby, your dead baby, and I will eat it, so you can't bury it, and I will kill your wife. So they stop struggling and fighting, and they agree to go back into service to evil again, like they were before. And he allows them to keep the corpse of their child. Well, that goes well for a little while. They already have learned there's some regenerative properties of Element X. So they take a man from town and kidnap him and sew their child to him and reactivate the child with the Element X, and bring him back and start working on a plan to make him a body, or to fix his situation the best they can, or whatever it may be. And they start behaving and doing what the undead, or well, not the undead, but like the vampire and the forces of evil want from them. They start cooperating again. Well, it's all well and good for a while. And then they ended up misbehaving and getting caught doing their craziness, which was not permitted. The deal was that they had to keep things on the lowdown so that, you know, nobody knew the forces of evil were operating here, and they didn't do that. So now they're against the forces of evil, and they're against the forces of good. They have no real allies in the world. Things are not looking good for them. And that's probably where the party would enter, about right there, I suppose. At least you would think. Who can know? I don't know. I haven't got that far in my story yet. I just kind of was making that part up on the fly as I went. I knew they had a kid that died, and they were trying to bring him back, but that was about as interesting as I was on that thought. There's a human head in here somewhere. There it is. Okay. Now let's hit this with a hot air gun. And make that flesh look good. And then we'll come back with some goo. That's pretty dry. I think that'll work if we want to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get soft tone. I'm going to get quite a bit of soft tone. Let's shake this up. We'll get quite a bit of soft tone, and we'll get a bigger brush, something like this, that can capture a good bit of it, and then we'll kind of hit all the bodies with it and give them some definition and some detail. We'll go over the spots that we sort of painted and change colors on some in different spots if we need to. And this is going to give us all that definition in the flesh that we need, you know. And if there's any on the ground or any spots that need touched up, just hit it with this and it'll kind of blend it all together. Something like that. Okay. Then if you want some more detail on the cart, you can drag this around on the cart and it'll settle into the darker, deeper spots where you made the wood. And it'll look all right. Okay. And just kind of twist it around and make sure you got everywhere, so there's no like real bright tan sticking out. And you can kind of stir it around and mix it around to get different looks if you need to. This is a good time to play with it. Try to get some different ideas how you want it, how much you want where. And then if you have Q-tips, which I think I do, any spots where you feel like there's just too much, just kind of go around there and dab it up a little bit. Like say you want a little bit of detail and there's too much dark there, just kind of hit it with this. Okay. Something like that. We got a lot of depth right there. That's a gross crotch. I generally try not to be perverted, but in this context, I think it'll work. Now what we want to do is on all the exposed limbs, we want to get that slaughter red or whatever red you got. I'm going to use blood red. I think that slaughter red's a little darker and better maybe. We'll use the blood red. Hell with it. We'll just use this mixer so I don't have to shake it. Okay. We'll get this. And that looks like it could be dark enough for what I want. I'm going to get my brush, and we're going to start by hitting edges, the rough edges of the bone, of the portions of body that are snipped off. So if it's a piece that's been chopped off, hit it with that. This is like an arm missing a hand, so that's perfect. And then here in the pile where they've been sitting a little longer, you can kind of come along the edge here and drag some of that down into the dirt a little bit, or into any spots that you don't like the way they look. And I'm just going to use the rest of it and try to fill in holes and go around the outside some. Because why waste it? There's a couple spots where things kind of come together and touch in little things, and I'm just going to make it where the blood just kind of sticks in those areas and pulls up. Okay. Let's take a look at it. In a mad rush to make a force strong enough to stand up against evil and good at the same time, because everyone wants the Lord Riss's head at this point. They are attempting to figure out how to make an army to defend themselves against, mostly against the evil. Because they think if the good gets them, they might not be put to death instantly, and their son won't be taken from them necessarily. They're not sure. But they know if the evil gets them, that they're going to kill New Adam. Now, when you see the miniature New Adam from the video I made, this is New Adam after they put more Element X on him. So, you know, it's different different New Adam. The New Adam right now is just a small child stuck to the side, grafted to the side of a man. So put some stuff away and take a look at the Lorbus corpse pile in wagon, corpse hauling wagon. They're going to have a helper that is a creature, a man who's been afflicted with Element X, who does a lot of their heavy lifting and fights for them and stuff. And it's probably going to, my thought is it would be like her brother or something, but I'm not sure what I'm going to introduce him or how I'm going to introduce him yet. I haven't even started on miniatures for them. I want the threat of the Lorbuses to become more prevalent, and when the party thinks they're at the cusp and have caught them, they'll be gone and in Carson City already, which is going to be the next, if we survive here in Texarkana, where I'm going to take them next is Carson City. And that's going to be where the Lorbuses are set up next. So anyways, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell icon, and leave a comment. All the things that please the great algorithm spirits. Check out the website, www.dungeon-or-dungeon/dash.com. There's a link in the description. And check out our Discord. There's also a discount code down there to get you 25% off your first box of our monthly miniatures. We would love to have you. If you can't, we understand. We've all been there. But if you can, please do. Hey, we'll see you next time.